you, sir.
Samudra Mishra.
Please be seated.
Come, sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Quickly introduce yourself.
Sir, my name is Samudra Mishra. I have done my 10th from St. Anne's Convent School, Sonpur. I have done my 12th from Sai International School, Bhubaneswar. I have done my graduation in Physics Honours from Bakshi Jagabandhu Vidyadhar College, Bhubaneswar. And my optional is Philosophy. And this is my first attempt and first interview.
This is the first attempt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you are basically a science background student who has taken optional subject philosophy.
Yes, sir.
Why did you choose philosophy?
Sir, initially I was interested in physics, but later when I started studying philosophy, I got more interested towards philosophy. And then I realized that there are very similarity between both physics and philosophy.
There is interaction between physics and philosophy?
Yes, sir.
Like what?
Like both are based on logic and reason. They put forward their argument through logic and reason. The only difference is that in their approach. That science is based on both more evidence based study and philosophy is more argument based.
More?
Argument based. They provide argument and they provide justification to those arguments.
Okay.
What's the philosophy of our constitution? What kind of philosophy the constitution? Every constitution
Yes,
has a certain philosophy.
Yes.
What is the philosophy?
The fundamental philosophy of constitution is enshrined in the preamble. Okay. That is, sir, to establish justice in the society, to establish equality and
Justice, only justice? No? What kind of justice?
Justice, social, economic and political.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay.
Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship.
Okay.
Equality of status and of opportunity, and fraternity, among others. So,
And what are the other things in the preamble? You have
so that is the
omitted the first line.
So that is the purpose I have mentioned. The nature of state, the constitution, the preamble envisaged is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republic.
So when did it change its preamble?
So it was only once amended once, the 42nd Amendment Act, where the term socialist and secular was added.
Anything else was added also to the preamble?
Yes, sir. The term unity and integrity.
Very good. Very good. So there are two parts of the constitution which are called the conscience of the constitution.
Yes, sir.
Ambedkar called them the conscience of the constitution.
Yes,
which
sir.
are these two parts?
Sir, one is
Yes.
fundamental right,
That is
part 3 of the Indian Constitution, and DPSP,
that is
part 4.
What is the difference between the character of both of them?
Sir, fundamental right envisages to provide political democracy, whereas DPSP envisages to provide socio-economic democracy.
Anything else?
With regard to the enforceability, that is fundamental rights are justiciable, whereas DPSP are only directions to the state.
Is that the position that the Supreme Court has also taken?
Supreme Court has said.
Supreme Court has it always said that they are not justiciable, or they have said that yes, it is also justiciable?
No, they have said that not justiciable, but they need to consider. They need to, when they are analyzing a particular policy.
Give me an instance. Give me an instance where the Supreme Court has said that this directive principle should be a fundamental right. Give me one example. Have you understood the question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
A bare reading of the Constitution would show that Part 3 is justiciable.
Yes, sir.
You can get it enforced
Yes,
in
sir.
the Supreme Court.
Yes,
Which is the article? Which is the article
Sir?
through which you can enforce your fundamental right?
That is Article 32.
32.
Writ.
And what is the other article in the High Court?
226.
226.
Yes.
So while this is enforceable, directive principles are not enforceable.
Not enforceable.
Not enforceable. Yes. But as I said, that there have been several Supreme Court judgments
Yes,
where they have not treated directive principles as non-justiciable. They have said that yes, this is also fundamental for the rights of the citizens.
Yes.
Tell me one case. Tell me one instance. There are several instances. Just tell me one.
Sir, I am unable to recall right now, but one is the
Very easy.
Champakam Darai Rajan case.
No, Champakam is a different
sir.
case altogether. Think of an addition in fundamental. I am giving a clue. There is an addition in our fundamental right. There is one article which was introduced.
That is 21A. That is,
So 21A is what?
that is right to compulsory elementary education.
From which age to which age?
The elementary education particularly
No,
till
this is from which age to which age?
6 years to 14 years.
14 years. It doesn't call elementary education. It is school
Okay,
education.
okay, sir.
School education.
Yes, sir.
School education. Now, in the original constitution, Article 45 says
Yes, sir.
that education, the state should try to provide free education to everybody. That was in Article 45.
45.
That was the directive principle.
Yes, sir.
Now that has become fundamental.
Okay, okay, sir.
So, have you, and which is the case in which this was done?
Sir,
Unni Krishnan.
Oh,
It's a very important case
Okay,
in
sir.
Unni Krishnan versus State of Karnataka in 1993.
okay.
The Supreme Court said, unless you have a right to education,
Yes,
you
sir.
have no right to life.
Yes, sir.
So education will lead to livelihood.
Yes,
So
under-
education has a direct linkage with Article 21.
Yes. That's why under Article 21. There is,
21A. So therefore that has become. So therefore the Supreme Court, there are several other cases where Supreme Court has said we cannot treat directive principles as non-justiciable and we cannot think them as pious platitudes.
Yes, sir.
कि भाई करना है, goal से करना है. No,
Yes, sir.
court has said no. In the interest of socio-economic justice, because in the preamble we have said
Yes, sir.
justice, social, economic, and political.
Political, yes,
If you want to ensure that,
Yes, sir.
then you cannot treat it as just a bias code.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
go.
you must be keeping in touch with current social issues.
Yes, sir.
One major issue which has come, which happened very recently in Kolkata, was this rape and murder of a medical young doctor.
Yes, sir.
And it has raised an uproar in the society, and people have questioned the way it all happened and the way the state has tried to brush over the matter.
Yes, sir.
It has become a national issue, in fact. Is there any link to any judgment of the Supreme Court on safety for women in the workplaces?
Yes, sir. It is the Bisaka guidelines.
Vishaka.
Yes, sir.
The Vishaka guidelines had specified that women should have safety in the workplace,
yes.
and it is guaranteed by the Constitution. This is a direct violation of a constitutional thing.
Yes, sir.
So why do you think the state has remained indirect, kind of a impassive to this situation where there has been a national uproar on this? Why has the state taken so long to take action on this? Though there is a constitutional directive, this Vishaka, which very clearly states. So why did it take so long for the state government to act on it?
So actually they are taking actions, but I think the main issues for the consistent persistence of such type of crime against women is I find that is low deterrence against such crimes. So the state is reluctant to implement the law. There is also law, that is the POS Act, that is Protection of Sexual Harassment in the Workplace Act, that is to implement the Visakha guidelines. So I think, sir, that there are ineffective conviction rate regarding the rape. Now they are demanding for capital punishment also. So I think that major issues lies in the conviction rate. That is, I was going through the NCRB report, which stated that the conviction rate for rape is just 27%. So that means around 70%.
It also takes a long time.
Yes, sir.
Apart from this, it takes a very long time.
That is because
Conviction time is also.
yes. So main issue is that in our entire criminal justice system, from investigation to the judgment and the long pendency of the case, that is also issue. Recently, the Chief Justice also highlighted that the reluctance of the lower court in granting bail, that was the issue for long pendency of the court. That is one of the reason which actually bring about the structural issues that is persistent in our criminal justice system. So I think that severity of punishment would be more effective than severity of punishment. That would actually lead to better protection of the women.
One statement which the Chief Justice made in this case, just to supplement what you mentioned, that right to anonymity.
Yes.
He
Yes,
said that the details, the identity of the victim
Will publish
should,
in the
should not be published.
yes, sir.
Now, this was based on a very major judgment of the Supreme Court. there was a judgment of the Supreme Court, right to anonymity for victims of. So please remember that judgment is Bipun Saxena versus Union of India in 2018.
Yes, sir.
The Supreme Court had said that it is completely illegal, completely unethical to publish details of the names. That is why we don't call it Nirbhaya.
Yes, sir.
Like earlier we called it Nirbhaya.
Yes, sir.
So right to anonymity.
Yes.
Right to anonymity is also fundamental right.
That also comes under, sir, right to privacy also.
Right to privacy.
Privacy
Which judgment gave right to privacy?
Case Puttaswamy case.
What was the judgment? What was the judgment?
That was Aadhaar judgment.
Judgment. What does right to privacy mean? What do you understand by right to privacy?
So right to privacy means every individual have their certain right to privacy that need to be protected by the state. The state should not use the personal data for.
Is it absolute?
Sir, I won't say that is absolute.
No, not you say. I mean, in that same judgment, the court has also said that it is not absolute.
Yes, sir, it is not absolute.
Why it is not absolute?
Sir, because in case of an issue where there is national importance or security is concerned, in that case.
So there are reasonable restrictions.
Yes, sir.
Can be put.
Yes, sir.
Good. Very good answer.
Anything you want to say about India's current state of foreign policy? How are we conducting our foreign policy with our neighbors? You have any views on that?
Sir, our foreign policy have evolved from the non-cooperation movement to multi-cooperation and currently the strategic autonomy. India is trying to actually balance, having a balancing act in the foreign policy.
Balancing act.
Balancing act. And
Between who and who?
so there is contention regarding when there is some sort of polarization regarding the West and particularly Russia-China axis. India is actually focusing on balancing and not just balancing, it is also supporting the humanitarian approach. That is a humanistic approach to it. And in foreign policy, India's foreign policy is basically, I would say, focus more on national interest. Because there is no global any convention that is actually guiding all this very effectively. And that's why not only India, I would say, all the nations, they are actually prioritizing their foreign policy on the basis of their national interest.
Absolutely. Yes, India is a little different from other developing nations in the sense that India has a long history of decolonization process, because India's independence triggered a decolonization process in the world, and India was the first country to be decolonized, followed by many countries in the other continents of the world. So India is deemed to be a leader of the decolonization movement, and we spoke up. We were among the first countries to speak up about apartheid in South Africa and all that. So we had achieved a kind of a moral high position, which was ensured by our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, and he held himself the portfolio of foreign affairs for a long time. Because he guided India's foreign policy conduct in the initial period of our foreign policy. Do you think this has changed in any way under the Modi government? This kind of a foreign policy which under Nehru, under successive prime ministers, and now Mr. Modi. Do you find any substantive differences, or is basically the same?
No, sir, in their essence, they are basically same, but the approach might be different.
What are the differences in approach?
Initial, I would say, during the initial times, India was actually tilted towards USA and then toward Russia during the 1971 times. But now India is having balance between both USA and Russia. And now India is emerging as a leader of the global South. That is most important. That is inclusion of the African Union in the G20 was the most very effective decision that was taken. So now India is actually, I would say, that it has evolved as per the demand of the geopolitics. Not just geopolitics, but also the geoeconomics part also we need to see. And that is the reason I would say, in their essence, I would say India's foreign policy is moreover consistent throughout.
Okay. You mentioned India is emerging as the leader of the global South.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You said that?
Yes, sir.
Global South, let's say G20 as a representative of the global South. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
India was the last
leader.
president of
Yes,
G20.
Yes, sir.
September last year we had India being
Yes, sir.
hosting the summit,
Yes, sir.
G20 summit.
Yes, sir.
But do you know India has the lowest per capita GDP among all the 20 countries of G20? Do you know that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So how does India assume a leadership position within this group with the lowest per capita income, which is the poorest country among the G20? How do you reconcile these two?
So despite being a low per capita country, India is India was successful in bringing a consensus, a common agreement, the Delhi Agreement in G20, which was applauded by even the Western countries.
Has achieved what?
The common consensus, the Delhi Declaration, which the both USA and Russia agreed.
How do you say that is common consensus? Where has this come from?
Not exactly common consensus, I would say, but
For example, in the conflict with Ukraine, Russia and Ukraine, I don't think there is any common consensus between Russia and the UK or USA, which India has tried to bring about.
India has mentioned that external aggression in terms of territorial aggression, that is wrong. But in that case, it also said that every country also has the right to self-defend that case.
That is different. You said India has brought about a common consensus among different blocks or different.
Sir, I would say the Delhi Declaration that was signed, to the Delhi Declaration, both Russia and Ukraine agreed. That was not possible in the earlier G20 summit, the Bali summit that happened. So that one, I would say, in that case, India was successful.
Russia and Ukraine haven't signed any agreement so far. There was in the beginning some attempts at some mediation which was attempted by Turkey,
Yes, yes.
but it failed.
Yes. Sir, I am not saying the mediation. I am saying that the Delhi Declaration that took place, that was not not particularly about the war. There was a common consensus regarding a particular issue. Sir.
The Delhi Declaration only mentioned that our approach to it is that through diplomacy and dialogue,
Yes, yes,
the peace should come about through diplomacy.
India have consistently supported diplomacy and dialogue. When our Prime Minister visited the Russian President, he said that this is not an era of war. The same he said in Ukraine, that issues cannot be solved on battlefield. This means that he is consistently supporting that humanitarian assistance and creation of humanitarian corridor and solving international and territorial dispute through consensus and dialogue and diplomacy. That is the approach of India.
Then why is it abstaining from different UN resolutions when it's a case of the UN Charter very clearly says that when a country's territorial integrity and sovereignty is threatened, then you should stand against it.
Sir, when the Western...
Why does India abstain from such resolutions?
Sir, when the Western countries put a complete sanction on Russia, Russian oil and all, then that India also abstained because there is also good relation with Russia. And it is not that India is taking a decision on the basis of its national interest. Russia has been a long and trusted friend of India. And that is why India is trying to balancing act in that case, I would say.
But at the same time, it creates displeasure among India's Western friends, partners, particularly USA.
No, sir, USA is also not like when all the countries were buying weapons from Russia, then under CATS that cuts, yes, USA put sanction. But when India brought the S-400, the USA didn't sanction the India. So that means also that USA is somehow agreeing the approach of India, that it is India is
Not agreeing, but I mean...
you mean to say that India is assuming that US will continue to give a pass to India on the matter of...
No, sir, it is not that India is completely supporting Russia and opposing Ukraine. It is not the case. Indian Prime Minister, this is the first time India...
No, but have you seen the press conference with Ukrainian President gave when Mr. Modi met him soon after that? What did he say? Do you know that?
Yes,
the
sir.
press conference?
Yes, sir.
He was very, very frank and forthright, and I think he was rude also in his comments because he had invited Mr. Modi to Ukraine, and Mr. Modi had just left Ukraine by train, and Mr. Modi was still on Ukrainian soil as a guest of the Ukrainian government when Mr. Zelensky was speaking to the Ukrainian press and also foreign press about Mr. Modi's visit, where he made 3 points, very important points. He said that India is not qualified to do any mediation because India has not signed the peace summit's communique. Then he said that though we could have invited India to host the next peace summit, but India is not qualified because of this. Then he said that India has been buying arms and oil and other that, so India is an interested party, so how can India talk about peace? Then he said another very, very important thing, when India, Putin was bombing the children's hospital in Ukraine, Modi was there, present on that day, at that moment, and Modi just giving some sympathy towards the children, he had said nothing, which means Putin did not quite respect the Indian Prime Minister, and at the same time he was bombing a children's hospital in Ukraine. That was the three major points he
I have
made.
not gone through the
These are
exactly.
very complicated issues.
So,
Okay, sir.
so how do you say that India has stood as a messenger of peace with the Ukrainian president? Of course, I don't justify the Ukrainian president's allegations, but
Yes, sir.
in the sense that India is caught up in this game, in this power game, because of its own interests, whatever you say, according to you, India has been taking arms and oil and all that stuff. But you think this balancing act will help India in its foreign policy projection
Sir,
in the long run?
Sir, I think India is trying to maintain a strategic autonomy. That is the first, I would say. But one thing is sure that now most of the both West and East both are expecting India, considering India as a country that can actually help in mediation. That is, I would say, one of
Both the countries are?
that they are actually having expectation from India that India can mediate. Even
You mean both Ukraine and Russia?
no, but West and
No, that I think would be.
They think that India is a proper country to do mediation.
yes, they are also saying so.
Anyway,
I'm a movie jubi.
chalo,
So we'll
chalo,
wrap
last,
up.
just last question. What do you understand by financial
Down.
inclusion, and do you
So
feel
I'll
that
see
it
you
will
later.
lead to equitable growth?
So financial inclusion is, sir,
It will lead to equitable growth?
yes, sir. I think it will lead to equitable growth because if the vulnerable section are actually included financially, they are financially empowered, and then they can make choices, and they can actually that can empower them, which will lead to social.
What is the banking structure and infrastructure in our country existing in India now? You know how many types of banks are there in our country?
So the scheduled bank and
Scheduled, non-scheduled, but any commercial banks?
yes, sir, commercial
just
bank
then any
and
other
cooperative
banks?
bank.
Then
The private sector bank, as per
within the commercial bank there are
private sector,
there are
public
banks.
sector. Yes,
So there are also regional rural banks.
yes, sir, regional rural banks.
There are small finance banks.
Yes, sir.
There are payment banks.
Yes, sir.
So this is all the banking architecture
Yes,
in it.
yes,
So
sir.
many types of banks, every one catering to a different set of
Yes, sir.
objectives. So okay, anyway, thank you. Thank you,
Good.
Samudra. Good.
Thank you very much. You've done very well. Keep it up
Keep it up.
and be confident about what you're saying.
Where can I improve? The areas of improvement.
Your areas